Now, the Springboks today will take on old foes in New Zealand in their last warm-up match ahead of the Rugby World Cup in France, which starts in 14 days. To help us talk about this match, we've roped in rugby journalist and author Gavin Rich. Good morning, Gavin. Thank you so much for joining us on Sports on Morning Live.
No problem. Thanks a lot, V. Good morning.
Gavin, let's start and talk about the match tonight between the Springboks as well as New Zealand. Some have said this is the strongest squad we've had this year. Let's talk about the quality of this team and perhaps also just touch on seeing Moody, which is a surprise, being moved from his winger position into centre, and how you think he's going to fare in that position.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's the strongest squad of the year. I think that there's still a bit of experiment. Well, there's not even experimentation. It's they're giving Moody a chance at centre to give him game time, not necessarily because they want to see if he can become the first choice outside centre. I think that as long as Lukhanyo Am's not at the World Cup and he remains injured and there's no injury that allows him to come in and replace anybody when he recovers, then Jesse Creel will be the first choice number 13 at the World Cup, and Damien Delendi, of course, will be the first choice inside centre, not Andre Esterhuizen. But this is an opportunity for those two guys to show what the Springboks have in backup, should it be needed in an emergency. I strongly suspect that Moody will end up back on the wing when it comes to the big games at the World Cup. That's where he's performed really well up to now, and he hasn't played too many games at centre, well, certainly not at international level, so it would be a big call to play him in the World Cup there. So they're not quite at full strength, but it is very exciting to see Kane and Moody playing centre, and it wouldn't I wouldn't be too surprised if he did what John de Villiers did back in 2005. It may be recalled by people who watched rugby closely back then that John de Villiers was playing most of his rugby at Springbok level on the wing. And then he got selected for one game against Australia at inside centre alongside Jacques Ferry, and he never moved away from wing again, well, not for most of his career. So that could happen, but I don't think that, regardless of what Kane does against the All Blacks, I don't think he's going to be playing outside centre against Scotland.
And I think, Gavin, one talking point just building up into this World Cup has been our kicking game, and looking at the squad that has been selected, where are we then getting those points? What do you make of what we can do with our kicking game, given the players that we've got in the squad?
I think regardless of what the Springbok management might say in press conferences and so forth, they will sort of say, well, they're not concerned, but they have to be concerned, because Manie Libbok is a great rugby player, and he's very good at creating plays out there. And it's a big game for him tonight, because he's never played against the All Blacks before, much less beaten them. So he's never actually played against the All Blacks as a starter. Sorry, he played against them in Auckland a couple of weeks ago as a replacement. But if you watch Manie, you'll notice that it's often the easy kicks that he misses, and that's an indication that he misses the kicks where he's under pressure, because you're under pressure to get the easy ones because you're expected to get them. And then he'll get one from the touchline where he's not expected to get it, where there's less pressure. So, he is erratic. Whatever anybody says, he is erratic. His kicking stats aren't what they were a while ago when he was topping the URC stats, and certainly last year, not the most recent season, but the season before that for the Stormers. In some big games, he does go a little bit walkabout, and that has to be a problem when you're playing the World Cup. I always say to people that when it comes to a World Cup fly half, you want a surgeon or an airline pilot. In other words, somebody that you have to rely on and is going to sort of be consistent, rather than an artist. And Manie is a bit of an artist. So it's going to be difficult for the Boks, because they're going to, as long as Andre Pollard's not there, they're going to be going into games not quite knowing what they're going to get. And I think that really sums up Manie. He is a brilliant rugby player, make no mistake. But like an artist, sometimes you don't really know what you're going to get from them on a given day.
Indeed, and Gavin, as you've now touched on Pollard, let's speak to how far do you think Pollard as well as Lukhanyo are in terms of their injuries and recovery?
Look, I haven't spoken to either of them, but from what Jock Ninova tells us, Pollard could play if he was in the squad next week, and the Boks were playing next week, which they're not, but if they were. Pollard's ready to play, so he's ready to play. Lukhanyo is apparently 2 weeks away from getting ready to play, so that would sort of place him just after the Scotland game. But, it's almost pointless talking about those two because they've been named in the squad. The other players have been named in the squad ahead of them, and they do require injuries for those two players to come back. Yes, that's it. So, there's a lot of speculation and there's a lot of people with conspiracy theories that, there's players that will just withdraw from the squad. You can't do that. And it would be very, very bad to do something like that to a player, to have him go through the whole World Cup announcement thing and to have all the well wishes and everything, and then go to the World Cup and pull out with a minor injury. It's got to be quite a major injury for you to leave the World Cup stage. So at the moment, a lot of what people are saying is pie in the sky. Yes, those two players are ready, but really, it would be quite unethical to just pull a player that's fit out of the World Cup squad. So at the moment, we have to say that unless there are injuries tonight, Pollard won't be playing against Scotland in a few weeks' time. And, to be honest, to look at it analytically, he hasn't played in a long time. So I wouldn't start him straight away. If he comes in during the World Cup and, say, plays against Romania and then gets himself match fit and ready and sharp again playing against Romania, then there is a chance of him maybe playing off the bench against Ireland. But otherwise, it's a non-starter.
And finally, Gavin, just as I wrap up with you, when you look at this squad that we've gotten going into the game tonight, what are your biggest areas of concern looking at the team? Is it who will run the defence in the absence of a Lukhanyo arm? Is it who do we start in wings, because we've got just so much quality there? What are your major concerns?
Yeah, I think you sort of summed it up with that last comment. It's almost like not a concern. I think we've got plenty of wings. I think we can play just about anybody on the wing and they'll be okay. Who's going to run the defence? That is a good question tonight, because obviously the outside centre is normally the guy who leads the defence, and Caden Moody hasn't played there for the and in that position for the Springboks before. So that's a concern. But when it comes to the first choice outside centre at the moment, in the absence of Lukhanyo Am, that's Jesse Creel. Jesse Creel's been brilliant on attack recently, but let me tell you that his real strength in his game is his defence, and he's a very good defensive organiser. So I don't think that there's any concerns there. I think that the main concern is really the one we've discussed already. Marnie needs to nail his kicks. He needs to become consistent, and he needs to nail the easy kicks. So if the Springboks get a penalty in the early stages of the game after 3 minutes, and it's 35 metres out and in the middle of the field, he needs to kick it and not skew it to the left or to the right. That would make, I think, South Africans a lot happier.